If you walk through the gates of Solitude on the right day, you'll find the entire city gathered around a giant wicker effigy of a king. They cheer, they drink, and then they set it on fire. This is the Burning of King Olaf, a tradition that has lasted for over 1,000 years. But have you ever stopped to ask why? In a land that worships its ancestors, why does the most imperial city in Skyrim spend an entire day celebrating the destruction of one of its most famous high kings? The answer isn't found in the history books. It was buried in a tomb, guarded by a ghost who spent an eternity waiting to tell a version of the story that was made illegal. To the rest of Skyrim, Olaf One-Eye is a legend. His story is the ultimate power fantasy of the North. In the early First Era, Skyrim was being torn apart by the War of Succession, a brutal civil war that started after the death of King Borgas. The land was weak, divided, and to make matters worse, a legendary dragon named Numinex was terrorizing the holds. He was a force of nature that no army could touch. Then came Olaf. The legends say that Olaf traveled to the peak of Mount Anthor, where he faced the dragon alone. He didn't just fight him with steel. He engaged in a duel of the Thuum, a battle of voices that lasted for days and shook the very foundations of the earth. In the end, Olaf emerged victorious, having shouted the dragon into submission. He captured the beast, bound it in chains, and paraded it across Skyrim all the way to Whiterun. The Nords were so impressed that they built a massive stone cell at the back of the Jarl's palace just to hold the dragon. They renamed the palace Dragon's Reach, and they named Olaf the High King of Skyrim. It's a perfect story, too perfect. But while the rest of the province hailed Olaf as a god hero, the people of Solitude remembered him differently. They saw a man who didn't just end a civil war, but a man who used the chaos to seize power for himself. They saw a king whose heroism felt more like a calculated political maneuver. And among these skeptics was a man named Svaknir. Svaknir was a bard. But in those days, bards weren't just entertainers. They were the keepers of truth, the ones responsible for ensuring that a king's legacy matched his actual deeds. Svaknir watched Olaf's rise to power, and he began to notice inconsistencies. He heard rumors that the battle on Mount Anthor didn't happen the way Olaf claimed. He suspected that Olaf hadn't defeated a legendary dragon in a fair fight, but had instead found a dragon that was already old, weak, or perhaps even trapped, and claimed the glory for himself. Svaknir did what bards do. He wrote. He composed a massive epic poem known as King Olaf's Verse. It wasn't a praise song, it was a scathing indictment. It called Olaf a thief, a liar, and a tyrant who had bought his crown with a fake miracle. The poem was so powerful, and its accusations so dangerous, that King Olaf couldn't ignore it. But he didn't debate the bard, he arrested him. Svaknir was thrown into the deepest, darkest corner of the dungeon at Dead Men's Respite. His work was confiscated, and every copy of his verse was ordered to be burned. Olaf wanted to erase Svaknir from existence, and for 1,000 years, he succeeded. This is where you, the Dragonborn, come in. When you join the Bard's College in Solitude, you're told that the festival is in danger because the Jarl wants to cancel it. She thinks it's a barbaric tradition that insults a great king. To save the festival, you have to prove that Olaf was a tyrant, and the only way to do that is to find the one thing Olaf couldn't destroy, the original manuscript of Svaknir's verse, buried with the bard in his tomb. Entering Dead Men's Respite is like walking into a time capsule of suppressed history. The ruins are crawling with Draugr, but they aren't just there to kill you. You are guided through the darkness by a ghostly figure, the spirit of Svaknir himself. He has been waiting in the dark for an eternity, holding on to his truth, refusing to pass on to Sovngarde until his words are heard. When you finally find the manuscript, it's incomplete. The ink has faded, and the pages are rotted, but even the fragments are devastating. Svaknir's words paint a picture of a Skyrim where Olaf's peace was actually a reign of terror. He suggests that Olaf used the dragon Numinex as a prop, a spectacle to distract the people while he executed his political rivals. The verse implies that Olaf didn't shout the dragon down. He found a way to exploit the beast's own madness. One of the most telling parts of the lore is what happened to Numinex in his final days. The dragon spent the rest of his life in the pit at Dragon's Reach, slowly losing his mind. Paarthurnax, the legendary dragon mentor, later tells us that even dragons can suffer from loneliness and isolation. Numinex became so broken that he forgot his own name. If Olaf was truly the noble hero the legends claim, would he have let a defeated foe rot in a hole for decades, just to serve as a trophy for his throne? To Svaknir, this was the ultimate proof of Olaf's cruelty. After you recover the verse, you return to the Bard's College, and because the text is incomplete, you and the headmaster have to reconstruct the missing lines. It's a moment of historical irony. You are literally writing the propaganda that will be used to justify the burning of the king, but the impact is the same. When the verse is read to Jarl Elisif, the truth, or at least the doubt, is so overwhelming that she allows the festival to proceed. So was Olaf a hero or a tyrant? The answer is probably somewhere in the middle. He did unite Skyrim. He did end a bloody civil war. He gave the Nords a symbol of hope when they needed it most, but he did it by stepping on the necks of the innocent. He did it by silencing the only man who dared to tell the truth. He was a leader who understood that in the world of politics, a good lie is often more powerful than the truth. The burning of King Olaf is Solitude's way of keeping a check on power. It is an annual reminder that no matter how great a king claims to be, the people and the bards will always be watching. They burn him not because he was a total monster, but because he was a fake. They burn him because 1,000 years ago, a bard chose to die in a hole, rather than let a lie go unchallenged. Next time you stand in Whiterun and look up at the great skull of Numinex hanging over the Jarl's throne, remember that you're not looking at a monument to a hero. You're looking at the evidence of a cover-up. You're looking at the dragon that made a king, and the king that broke a dragon. And somewhere in the mists of history, the ghost of Svaknir is finally at rest, knowing that his song survived the fire. But what do you think? Does a high king have the right to lie if it brings peace to his people? Or is a kingdom built on a lie destined to fail? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to know more about the dark secrets of Skyrim's High Kings, check out this video here. Subscribe to keep the lore alive. Until next time.